We had a great question come in about a common cue we tend to hear in Cobra pose and Up Dog, which is the cue to roll the shoulders open in these poses. Roll the shoulders open. So here's what this looks like. Let's say I'm in Up Dog. Here I am in my upward facing dog. And then the cue is roll the shoulders open. So do you kind of see, I know it may be kind of subtle to see, but I'll come back to kind of my normal Up Dog and then roll the shoulders open. It's like that, like that. So the question was, what do I think about that common cue? And I would first say that I don't think there's anything wrong with that cue, or I don't think it's a bad cue at all. I don't personally find myself cueing to roll the shoulders back in those poses. And I think if we just take a moment here to take a look at what rolling the shoulders back actually is movement-wise, and how that can be related to a back bend, which is what we're doing in Up Dog and Cobra. I think if we just examine that here for a moment, it may help us improve our movement eyes, and that will inform us on whether and when we might like to teach that cue. Here's the deal. When we roll the shoulders back in these poses, that the movement, the main movement that is it's called scapular retraction. So we have on our upper back, we have our shoulder blades, also called the scapulas, and they are two triangular bones, one on either side, flat triangular bones on the upper back. And our upper arm bone articulates, the head of the humerus articulates with the scapula, that's the shoulder joint, the glenohumeral joint, but then our scapula articulates with the rib cage, and the scapula can move around relative to the rib cage. So when we cue to roll the shoulders back, the predominant movement that's happening is that the shoulder blades, the scapulas, they move toward each other, and that's scapular retraction. There may also be paired in there a bit of some external rotation of the glenohumeral joint, the shoulder joint, but that's not as significant as the actual pulling the shoulder blades together. It's that scapular retraction that mainly happens when we cue roll the shoulders open. This is good for us to see because if we take a look, this is shoulder scapular retraction, and then the paired movement, the complementary movement, is scapular protraction, where the shoulder blades broaden on the upper back, they move away from each other. So retraction, protraction. And this movement is taking place kind of in this like front to back direction. And we could think, if we thought of just roughly like an arrow direction, it's kind of horizontal, right? It's like forward, back, horizontal. So scapular retraction is a horizontal movement. Now, spinal extension, which is a back bend, which is what we're doing in Cobra and Up Dog. And for me, when I biomechanically think about those poses, they're back bends. So like the main goal for me biomechanically and on a mobility level, the main goal is to mobilize the spine into extension. The spinal extension or a back bend, that is a movement, and flexion is here. So let's say this movement is happening more kind of like up, down. Like if we thought roughly of arrows, it's more of this like up, down kind of vertical movement, whereas the shoulder movement, the shoulder blade movement is more horizontal. So they're really kind of two distinct movements for the body. And if we really want to kind of mobilize one of them, it can be helpful to just really kind of focus on that movement and not try to mix it up so much with the other movement. So it's definitely, like I said, it's not bad. It's not a big deal at all to cue roll the shoulders open in Cobra and Up Dog. But I do think that by pulling the shoulders back in those poses, we can unconsciously kind of mix together shoulder retraction for spinal extension. You know, the two movements kind of glom together. And when that happens, when we move the shoulder blades and we try to extend the spine, we don't really mobilize either of them in the best way that we could. If we, for example, tried to more isolate each one individually. So if we try to, we want to isolate shoulder blade movement, if we try to keep the spine still and we just move the shoulder blades, say, into retraction and into protraction, this is probably going to be a little more effective for truly mobilizing retraction and protraction than if we kind of glom together retraction with extension and protraction with flexion. It's just going to be a little less potent for specifically the shoulder blades. And I find it to be similar in like those backbends of Up Dog and Cobra when we're wanting, if our goal is mainly to mobilize the spine into extension, I'm not sure how much it helps to also pull the shoulders back, because I think that we can often mask, like shoulder blade retraction can mask for spinal extension. And it can make us think that maybe we moved more into a backbend than we actually did because we pulled our shoulders back instead of maybe extending the spine as much as we could have. So it's just a little movement experiment. I would suggest that, I think this works best if you're standing, but just stand with me for a moment and just bring your arms down by your sides. Let's pull the shoulders back. So that's rolling the shoulders open, that's scapular retraction. Do that and lift your chest at the same time. So basically back bend. Pull your shoulders back and lift your chest at the same time, and just notice what you feel through your spine and also in your shoulder blades, and then let that go. And now bring the fronts of your hands to the fronts of your thighs. And this is just to kind of anchor our arms in place so that they don't move around, so that we keep the scapulas more quiet. And then without pulling the shoulder blades back, then lift your chest and see what happens for your spinal extension here without also throwing in the scapular retraction. And just notice, you might, like, there are a couple things you could notice. One might be like, where did you, when your eyes looked up, when you went into your back bend, where did your eyes land in each of those like experiments? And when you pulled the shoulder blades back and lifted the chest, where did you look? And then if you kept the shoulder blades quiet by planting your hands on your thighs and then lift up, where do your eyes look? And is there a difference? Like, say the further your eyes looked back, maybe the further you went into actual spinal extension. And that's like one little marker to check out. And then another thing that matters, I would suggest more, is what did it feel like? Like, what did it feel like to backbend? Let's say our goal is to backbend here. What's the difference between backbending while you pull the shoulders back? How do you feel? How does the backbend feel through your whole spine? And then let it go, and then plant your hands on your thighs, and then just lift your heart. And how does that feel different? So really, it's kind of like an inquisitive, exploratory answer here. Like, you could kind of compare the two and see how they feel, how they may feel different in your body. And then maybe that will inform you on like, well, what's the difference then between like not going out of our way to pull the shoulders back as we lift the chest? How is that different than cueing to pull the shoulder blades back and lift the chest? In my personal exploration of like these different ways of moving into a back bend, and then also combined with just my understanding of the actual movement of these joints and what they entail and how they interrelate, I just personally find that for my teaching, it makes a little more sense to let these two back bends, Up Dog and Cobra, be more about pure spinal extension, because to me, I think that's going to be more mobilizing for spinal extension than if we also pull the shoulder blades back and maybe mask some of the spinal extension that could otherwise be happening.